Hi guys, Jack here, doing an Interplanetary 1v1 today. If you're not familiar with the game, you can check out the short guide I posted on the channel a couple weeks ago, but the basic premise is you develop different weapons on your planet to bombard the living hell out of your opponents. Okay, getting right into it, selecting research off the bat, going for quantum computers as per usual, just because that city tech gives you the science academy in your city, which gives you a huge boost to science, which is always good. And then I just go to my main city, plop a power plant down along with a mine, and that's all you can really do on your first turn. Second turn, just continuing off of the main city just for efficiency's sake, so I can get some more minerals next turn. You know, the other thing you can do on turn 2 is go to like a second city and place a second solar plant down, but then you're getting less mines out early. And I kind of like stacking it at one city to start with just because it gives you a bit more resources. I have a few resources left over, so I decided to do the upgrades to give a boost to mining efficiency and power generation efficiency. The following turn here, turn 4, I decided to do it for the rest of my mines as well. Okay, then we're on to the action phase again, so here's turn 5. Again, nothing crazy, just continuing to expand the economy. I usually like to go for about 12 mines with all the upgrades, and I find that usually gives me with the standard 100,000 resources in a planet till about turn 40 or so, which is more than enough. What you'll see here though is I actually build a few more, and then I stop bothering to do the efficiency upgrade. I just go for the pure more resources. I don't care at the cost it comes to the total resource bank, because I figure in this 1v1 it's probably not going to go for that long, because again there's far less opponents to shoot at, it's just each other. So it's probably more efficient to just have more resources out and try to kill each other even quicker. I've spread my mines out over my two main cities, and then here on turn 7 I decided to throw a solar plant into my third largest city, and again make sure each city is connected as much as possible, because the more connections you have, those little yellow dots underneath the city, the faster that city will grow. This is also the turn I finished researching quantum computing, so I go to all of my, or sorry, not all of them, just the two biggest cities there, and I put a science institute into them, and that bumps my science up by quite a bit, which is good. After that, I'm trying to figure out what I should go for. Originally, I click on missiles here, and then I click down to kinetic defenses. I figure that might be smart, but then I realized that the missiles, it gives you the telescopes, and that gives you intel, which is always useful, and then it also gives you the active signal boost, which is a huge boost to science, which is always useful. After this, I decide to go for lasers, because I figure lasers will be good at closing out the game. They're just so good for just absolutely nuking cities and destroying population, and again, you need to kill the opposing person's cities to get a victory. As you can see too, my planet has quite a bit of water and not that much land, especially around my main cities. So here I decided to start branching out and using some offshore mines, which I haven't actually done before, but it worked out okay. The only issue is it can be a bit harder to defend with, a kinetic or ion defense, because again, you can't place either of those in the water, so it puts you a little bit at more risk. What I do here too is I finally have some intel up after building those telescope arrays, and I see that he actually has built 4 railguns. So I decide, okay, he's probably going railguns. So then I switch my research to the connect defense, so I can hopefully get it next turn and get it up to help defend myself. And not a moment too soon, because you see here he takes a couple shots and they're not too far off. And had I not checked my intel like that, or even built the intel in the first place, I wouldn't have known, and I'd be a turn behind, which would open me up to more damage. So that's one reason why intel is useful, and I generally like to go for it. And again, it's also a compliment because I'm going for missiles and lasers, both of which need intel in order so you know where to shoot. You can blind fire both missiles and lasers, but it's not really the most efficient. If you take a look at my planet, you'll see how much empty space there is. If you're using railguns or coil guns or anything like that, generally your area effect is so large and you're firing so many, that's why it doesn't really matter. And again, you don't even have the choice where to aim. See, he fires a few more, and that one's so close, it just loops around, but not quite again. But hopefully, next turn will be a bit closer, a few less planets moving around, he might be able to attack me. I decide I'm not really going to bother building any of my own offensive weapons. I'm just going to turtle a little bit, throw some kinetic defenses down, keep getting my economy up, and you'll see I'm making 2,500 minerals a turn, and I have almost 5,000 in the bank. What I realize now is my energy is actually a little low, and so last turn I built a few more solar systems, and I'll keep that going because you need lots of energy to actually use your kinetic defenses. If you don't have any energy, your kinetic defenses won't do anything. And you can see here I actually have no energy conveniently the very first turn where he actually hits me with all 3 shots. Luckily though, it's pretty far away and I didn't even have any defenses there, but I could have got caught off guard if those shots had landed in a densely populated area. It would have sucked. Here I have my intel high enough so I'm checking on my opponent's intel and I check his tech tree and I see he's actually almost at lasers. So I realize, oh, I'm in trouble. The railguns were a ruse. He's actually going for our lasers. And what I decided to do is go for magnetic radiation shielding and try to get a bunch of counter intel, because I figure if I can get my counter intel super high, he's not even going to be able to see where my things are, thus his lasers won't be able to do anything. And so I build a few, hopefully get it up. He keeps firing his railguns. Unfortunately, we got 2 that do go in, and they do a little bit of a glancing blow, not too much damage, a bit of damage to a telescope array, which isn't the end of the world. I check his intel again, a bit more, it's good. I decide I have my own missiles up now, so I'll take a few shots, but unfortunately they're on the wrong side of the planet, so none of them actually are able to hit him. I had a few more kinetic defenses just to increase my AoE, just so things don't get damaged, and then here we go, I start placing down the counterintelligence to hopefully try and block him from finding any of my stuff. And as you saw at the start of the turn, I checked my intel and he was still at 0, so he hadn't started building them yet, so I figure, okay, I'll get a head start. I also go to my 2 largest cities which have the Science Institute, and I drop down the active research booth, which gives you for 3 turns plus 50% science, which, on top of the 50% that you get from the Science Institute is a huge amount. You can see there he drops 2 lasers onto me, but he doesn't know where he's shooting, so it didn't do anything. And then he shoots 2 railguns, again, both of those miss, and now we're nice and close. My missiles have a perfect line, so I just go for a straight shot into him, and I target both of them to the same spot. And then when I go in to select his planet and decide where to shoot, I'm thinking about it, and then I realize that there's no point dealing damage to cities yet because it's only doing 150 pop. It's not really going to damage anything. I'd rather take out some of his offensive capabilities. And I'm checking out his planet. You can see he has a pretty widespread network, so there's nothing really clustered to deal damage to multiple things with one missile. And what I end up deciding to do is selecting this nuclear plant, which has 3 lasers coming off of it, and slamming both my missiles down on that. Hopefully I can get an explosion on that. And unfortunately what you can see here is I check my intel and he's gone from 0 to 60% on me, so he slammed down a bunch of telescope arrays in 1 turn, and my counter intel plan actually isn't going to cut it because he's already seen everything. And while you can still build more counter intel and block him from seeing it, if you see something in the first place, you know the building isn't going to move, so you can just blind fire it. You might not know specifically how much damage it is, but it kind of defeats it in the first place. And what you can see here is he has actually seen where everything is. He's at 100% intel now, and he starts targeting my missiles, unfortunately. So I realize, okay, I'm in a bit of trouble. First thing I got to do is bump my energy production up so I can keep my defenses up good. I decide to put some protection on another city, and I reduce my firing cost, throw another missile down, and he's starting to kill cities now. I got 1 city down, I only have 4 left, which isn't the greatest. But luckily, when I realized my counter intel plan wasn't going to work, what I realized I had to do is rush the shield defenses, which gives you a 100% block chance against the lasers, which thankfully render him kind of harmless because he only has a few railguns and then a bunch of lasers. And as you can see, I have so many resources and so much energy now, I'm actually able to build laser defenses on all of my cities, and so it's really actually not that big of a deal. You'll see last turn I was actually able to destroy that power plant, rendering those 3 weapons there useless, which is good. I decided to plop another missile down on his missile on his planet, maybe to destroy it, not sure. I come back and check, make sure I got shield defenses everywhere, plop down a few more. I'm feeling pretty safe. Again, the most important thing is solar plants. The more you have, the more attacks you can block, the more things you can fire, and it's super important. Solar plants I generally prefer more than nuclear plants because they don't actually require any minerals, and then they're cheaper, and so you can build more. And I find it's better to have a lot of solar plants in the same area, because if one power plant gets destroyed, you can usually, if they're clustered, reconnect them, and then you don't have a turn where your defenses are totally down and harmless. You can just like that reconnect things and rewire how things are connected and keep your defenses online, which is super important. Because people generally like to use, say, a laser to take out a kinetic defense that isn't within that laser's protection zone, and then they destroy the kinetic defense, which then means that the shield defense isn't within the kinetic protection, and then the shield defense is vulnerable to the railguns, and then they can start taking down your defenses like that. So it's super critical once you build your defenses to keep them up. And as you can see, my defenses are up, and I block 6 lasers from him, no problem. I shoot some back myself, and I deal a bit of damage, which is good. He has a couple railgun shots that go through, but not the big deal. He has 3 railgun shots that almost hit me, but luckily a planet he didn't notice, and it diverts all of them, which is always nice. And what I've decided to go for now is I'm just going to bombard him with railguns. So last turn I popped a few of them up. This turn I'm adding a few more, and I put the defenses down. A lot of people like to do the triple shot assemblage with the railgun and the AoE boost, the one that's a 60% AoE range boost and then a slight decrease to pop damage and building damage. What I like to do actually is stack the 2 AoE bonuses. There's a 60% AoE bonus, and I believe it's a 30% AoE bonus. And together with that, you get a huge radius of effect. You basically are always hitting every single turn. Here we have a big salvo coming. His shots all miss. It's a pretty wide shot. Me, here we go. All of my missiles lock on, which is awesome. I deal some pretty solid damage, and his shots come around and get kind of close to his city. But as I was saying, the reason I like to build my railguns like that is you just deal crazy amounts of damage, and railguns are so cheap to build, and also they have 2 power connections, so you're not really having to build a new solar plant for every single one like you do have to with missiles and lasers, because those only have 1 connection. With a bunch of railguns, you can have 1 power plant powering 1 railgun, and then that powered railgun can continue to connect to all the other railguns, making a huge line. And again, the more bullets you have, the better. And so I don't know if it's a mistake that other people make with the triple assemblage, but I'm a big fan of the way I do it, and I think you'll see as I continue firing on him that it's worth the results. So here we go, I have all my bullets stacked in one big line. He has a couple that come in, I'm blocking some shots. Unfortunately, a lot do go through. I do some big damage, I take out some of his weapons and a nuclear power plant. And again, one issue... Oh, and then here we go, his bolts come around. Oh, and he's so close. He actually almost deals damage to himself, which is pretty funny. But you can see I'm starting to target his nuclear power plants. He's gone for a nuclear power plant infrastructure build versus my solar plants. And the problem with those is when they blow up, they create a huge fallout area, which means you can't build in there, and they start damaging the buildings around there. And when you add in that little bit of trickle damage with just the massive amount of AoE damage my railguns are doing, you start getting into some serious trouble. Here we have a big exchange. I deal some serious damage to him, 18 buildings damaged. Him, he does 3 buildings destroyed, which isn't the end of the world. But the exchanges are starting to be good for me, and if you take a look at his planet, his entire planet is just covered with damage because those railgun AoEs are almost half a hemisphere each, which is just insane. If you take a look at his railguns, they're quite a bit smaller, and that's the difference that having that second AoE boost damage does. Had he had that second one, he would have dealt a whole bunch of damage to that closest city up there. And again, I think that's a reason to do it my way. Again, we're actually starting to be in a good shape. I thought we were in a really rough spot because I tried to counter his weapons, his lasers, by going for counter intel, which ended up really not working because he pounded a bunch of telescopes down in one turn and had way more than I thought he would, and then he discovered the location of all my things. And again, once you see something the first time, counter intel does nothing for you because they know the location. So I have to rush the shield defense, but thankfully he didn't have that many lasers. He was only able to destroy 1 of my cities before I got all my shield defenses down, and I was good. And what my plan is now, you'll see I have a bunch of railguns, which are just kind of pounding his planet, dealing a lot of damage to stuff, weakening, destroying a few things. And you'll see my research, I'm going for tailored pathogens, which is a missile tech, which does a huge increase in damage for your missiles against population. And I decided it's time to start really focusing on his cities. Unfortunately, he decides it's the same thing because he's built a solar laser, which I haven't realized, and you'll see that there's a huge little line coming off of the sun and it just instantly destroys one of my cities. Fortunately, though, we managed to kill one of his cities, so we have 3 cities left. He has 4. We're off to a good start, but that solar laser is a real problem. You see on my missile, I target it, I can deal like half damage to it with a missile if it hits, and then hopefully some of the railguns might finish it off. And what I decided to do is build a few more missiles, now that they're protected by the shield arrays, and hopefully he's just realized that there's not really much he can hit with his shield arrays, and he might stop noticing it. Again, that solar laser comes out, and another city is totally killed. My salvo, I thought it was going to be good, but unfortunately all of them miss until they loop around the planet and come crashing back down, and most of them lock on, 3 out of about 9, and we deal some good damage, which is nice. Here we're going for long-range shots around the solar system. Not so sure about that. What I really want to do is hopefully target his solar laser because I need to get that thing out of commission because it's going to kill my smaller city and only 2 shots are going to be needed to kill my main city, which is a serious problem because his cities are the ones that are supposed to die, not me. But unfortunately, we have 2 and he still has 4. I seem a little light on resources because he's destroyed some things, so I decided to build a few more, and then I also realized it's because I've lost connection to one, so I reconnect it, and then we're all good. I decided to research advanced genetics to see if I can increase my population size in some of my cities, but unfortunately he destroys the smaller one. My other city's max size 1 billion, but still, a solar laser is going to do 750 million pop damage, which isn't great. I try to go for some long-range shots, but unfortunately they loop all the way around, most of them missing, and end up hitting me, which is not great. One of them goes through, one of them intercepted, which is nice. I throw some missiles down, I target him, hopefully I can start killing his cities because now it's a race. But what I need to do first before I target those cities is destroy that solar laser. His planet's taken a pretty big pounding, his infrastructure's a little messed up, he doesn't have enough energy for defenses, and if I destroy a solar laser, I don't think he's going to have another 2,000 minerals to build in one turn, because he also has to be repairing things. His shots go a little under, which is great, and then all of my missiles come in here, deal some serious damage, and you'll see we managed to actually get the solar laser. The railguns don't seem to hit, which, it's okay, it's not the end of the world. The main thing was that solar laser, because had it stayed alive, it would have done some serious damage. Thankfully, the solar laser was on the opposite side of the sun, so it wasn't able to get a shot off, so my planet is still at full HP, and my main planet is surrounded. It's got a bunch of kinetic defenses. I'm throwing an ion defense on it now. It has a bunch of shield defenses. There's no way anything is getting through unless it's a super weapon, and we've destroyed it. Now it's time for the other glove to drop. We're getting close. I have a huge amount of railguns. Those are going to deal some serious damage. I have a few missiles up with the pathogen upgrade. I'm going to start killing some cities, and then we have a couple lasers just for fun. You can see his shots, again, go a little south. He was trying to avoid a planet. Mine are just perfectly in orbit. We deal some serious damage, and we kill another city. So we have 1 city left, and he has 2, which is actually pretty close. I have 2 lasers. I just, spread them out to deal some equal damage to the city. And usually, when I'm going longer range, the way I like to aim my weapons is to have them fire so that they begin to go into the orbit of the planet and then follow the orbit around, which I find works really well. There's less chance of error. But if they're close enough, I will just go for a straight shot. Here, we managed to kill another city, and then a second city. Those genetic warfare missiles do crazy, and then that's it. We've killed them. So really what sealed the deal there was going for the tailored pathogen. The railguns destroyed all of his defenses, soaked up his energy, the missiles come through, kill his pop, lasers for a bit of fun, and that's it. When we were really close to death, we managed to seal the deal by killing his solar lasers, and then we turned the tide and won. Thanks for watching.